Hi, it's Dot, and welcome to my low-carb kitchen. Today, we're doing a great French fry experiment. We're going to be testing 3 different types of root vegetables to see which makes the best French fry if you're low-carb. So, which root vegetables am I using in my little experiment today? Well, I sort of have a control, which is the sweet potato, and I'm sure many of you have seen these in restaurants, have had them. They're in grocery stores now in the frozen food section. So sweet potato fries are very common on a low-carb diet. A lot of people already use these, but I'm using them against a rutabaga and a parsnip. Now, the wonderful thing about root vegetables and why these are great to incorporate into your low-carb living or way of life is that they have a lot of fiber, which is great. They have a lot of antioxidants, beta-carotenes, tons of vitamin C. These guys are loaded with vitamin C. They have a lot of magnesium, phosphorus. The sweet potato is very unique amongst the 3 I have here simply because it is the highest veg you're going to find around on the planet with vitamin A. It has the highest levels of vitamin A in it. But these are all very healthy for you. You just have to watch the carbs because these are root vegetables. That means they're underground. Any vegetable that is underground basically has more carbohydrates. They're starchier. So with the sweet potato, when you're having it for a French fry or if you decide you want a sweet potato mash, I treat them like I treat fruit. It's a rare treat. It's something special. It's not something I do every day or even once a week. So you want to be cautious with that. The nice thing about rutabagas and parsnips is that they are much lower in carbs than the sweet potato. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But right now what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to start prepping my root vegetables. I've already washed them, but now I'm going to start preparing them for chopping. I've already trimmed off the end of the parsnips. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just peel it. I want to peel it loosely. Now, if your parsnip is washed really well and you've scrubbed it, then you don't necessarily have to do the peeling. I washed it, but I'm not confident that I got every nook and cranny out of there, so I'm going ahead and peeling it. Now with parsnips, you think they're pretty small compared to a rutabaga, so therefore probably less carbs. Not so. These have almost 14 grams of net carbs, I should say, per about 100 grams total. So if you take a cup of these, you're looking at 13 and a half carbs, whereas a rutabaga basically is about 5.5 carbs. So rutabaga is a pretty good value for you. So let me go ahead and just finish these, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to peel the rutabaga. It's just a different texture, but peeling it's pretty much the same way. Right, the one thing about rutabagas that make them unique when it comes to peeling them is the fact that they have this filmy wax on them, so you really have to be careful. It's pretty slick. I always find when I'm using my peeler with these, I have to probably wash it once or twice because of the waxy buildup, and you don't want this slipping at all. You want a smooth cut. So I've already went ahead and peeled one little piece of it, but it's just like any other root vegetable. You're just going to be peeling. You just want to be careful because obviously it's not very sturdy. You can hold it in your hands, but you just want to make sure your fingers are out of the way. And like I said, for me, the wax tends to start making this get a little gunky, so you just got to watch that. So I'm going to go ahead and peel it and then get going with the sweet potato. All right, I already have my oven set at 400, so it's preheating right now. I went ahead and I just peeled the sweet potato, and then what I'm going to do now is just cut off the ends. You just don't want those. And I've already cut off the ends of the rutabaga and also the parsnip too, if you can see that. So what I'm going to do is, the problem when you're cutting these is that they tend to be a bit unstable. So you want to find a good end, because you want to try to cut off just a little bit. You want to hold it firmly, and you're going to cut off a piece of it, of the sweet potato. There we go. Get your knife through it. You're going to set that aside. So now your sweet potato can basically go down like that, and then you can start slicing it. So you want to make sure the fries are about even in size, basically. So I'm going to try to go for, like at least between 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch, basically in size, if I'm lucky, if I can get there. Maybe closer to 1/4. So you just sort of want pieces like that, and then I'll show you how to cut them up. I'm just going to go ahead and finish this. There we go. So all you're going to do now is to cut your fries. So you're just going to go just like that. So you want to, again, try to keep them roughly the same size. That's close enough. It's that easy. So I'm gonna go ahead, finish up the sweet potato, and we're gonna do the same techniques with the rutabaga and the parsnip. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start seasoning and oiling my root vegetables, my soon-to-be root vegetable fries. And I'm gonna go ahead and start with the parsnips. Now, the parsnips and a rutabaga, with most root vegetables, not all, and there is the exception, and they are the sweet potato, you want to put them at the bottom of your oven when you're baking them because you want them closer to heat source. It's going to cook the bottom of it nice and evenly. You do have to stir them once or twice during the cooking time, so that makes them a little bit unique. I'm going to go ahead and add the oil. So I'm using a tablespoon of olive oil, as you saw. I'm going to use that for all of them. I might use a little bit more with the rutabaga since I've got more of it. And I'm using, this is my salt seasoning that I made, which is basically, the sound of an oven that's done. But anyway, this is the seasoning I make with sea salt, black pepper, and garlic powder. And I'll have a link to that below. And I used paprika in it before, and I've switched out sea salt with pink Himalayan salt, so I vary that time to time. This one I'm actually using smoked paprika on that. I have a teaspoon here, but I suspect I'm not going to use it all because I'm only using one parsnip. And I don't want to over season it, so I do want to taste the parsnip. And you just get your hands in there and you rub everything, tossing it. And I'm using the same seasoning on all three of these, so I won't have a taste differential when it comes to the seasoning. So with that, that's a nice color to the parsnips, as you can see, a little orangey. Make them a little bit more like the carrots that they look like, even though they're not carrots. I'm gonna go ahead and just spread these out on this side. I just have to remember which side I have them on when I do. And I don't know if you can see that, I just sort of single them out individually. I'm gonna move this over so you can see it a little better. My hands are all messy, but you get the idea. I want them sort of close together. We're not close together. I don't want them overlapping. I want them to cook evenly. So I'm doing that. The rutabaga is going to take up this part of it. I'm using parchment paper just so it's a lot easier for cleanup. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start seasoning my other root vegetables. All right, so I have my fries all set up. Parsnips are right here. This is the rutabaga. So I can tell the difference because I'm using the little rounded rutabagas right there to sort of break between the two. I have my sweet potato all set and seasoned. And again, you don't want to overlap them. You don't want them stacked on top of each other. Now, trust me, when I go ahead and sort of mix them up a little bit about halfway through cooking, they're not going to look this pretty, but they're not going to be overlapping or touching each other either. So that's really important. Now, when you put them in, because I'm using 2 cooking trays, it's a little bit different. You're supposed to rotate cooking trays. However, the sweet potato has to stay at the top third of the oven. And the reason why it has to stay near the top is because sweet potato, because it's so carby, it's because it has all the sugars in it. They start caramelizing very fast. So the bottom of the oven is the heat source. So you want to get it at the top because it's not near the heat source. Be a little bit of a challenge because I have a convection oven. So that means that the heat is all over and it's even in theory, but I'll just keep an eye on them. These will cook for about 45 minutes. The rutabaga and the turnips will cook for anywhere between 25-35 minutes. So I just have to watch them to make sure they don't burn, especially parts of the parsnips that are really like narrow, near the narrow end of it. They're a little thin, so I'll want to watch those like a hawk. But again, both of them, you'll want to rotate the fries at the halfway point. You just want to make sure they get cooked evenly. So with that, I'm going to go ahead, put this in the top third, put this in the bottom third. When it comes time halfway through, I'm going to move this tray up just one level, but it'll still be in the bottom third. This one is pretty much going to stay in the same position now. All right, the parsnips are out of the oven. They are right here. They look like French fries. They cook a little bit quicker than I was anticipating, and that's partly because they were so small compared to everything else. But I'm going to go ahead. I took them out because obviously they were soft when I pierced them with a fork. And you know, you could see the, like I said, the little ends I was being careful with, they burnt a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and try this little guy. I am partial to parsnips, so I really do enjoy them. They have a little bit of a kick at the end for me. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it tends to be a little bit more of a bite to it. Tastes really good. They have, like, if you don't like really crunchy French fries, they do have a bit of the texture of a French fries. If you can look in, you can sort of see. It reminds me of the mush of a French fry, of a traditional French fry. But It's really tasty. I really did enjoy it. The spice that I added on didn't overwhelm it. I definitely taste the parsnip coming through. So if you have kids who, may not like their vegetables, this might be a good way to get them to try parsnips. Let them try something new and different. So I'm going to finish up this puppy, and then in a moment, the rutabaga should be done. We got my sweet potato fries out of the oven. I'm going to go ahead and I let them cook. The challenge I had with cooking 3 different root vegetables is I had to find a oven temperature that made sense for all 3. And so I chose 400. So the sweet potatoes, strangely enough, actually cooked a little bit faster than a rutabaga. That surprised me. So that should be coming out in a few minutes. Normally I would cook my sweet potatoes at about 425, 450, somewhere around there. So I took these out a little early. They're crispy on the outside. They're still soft on the inside. I did sample one because I just had to because I do love them. I'm going to go ahead. These are great sweet potato fries. My husband sampled one. He said they were the best ones I ever made because I cooked them a little bit longer to go for the crispiness. They're really good. If I I didn't take them out the full 45 minutes. I left them in probably about 35 minutes. If I left them in a little bit longer, they would have been perfectly crispy throughout. So just keep that in mind. You just want to watch and make sure they don't get too crispy, if you know what I mean. So with that, I'm going to finish this, and then soon enough, that rutabaga will be out of the oven, and we'll see how that does. Okay, I pulled the rutabaga out of the oven. I left it in a little bit longer to try to firm it up, but it didn't get quite as firm as I wanted, but that's okay. I didn't want to overcook it and burn it either. So I'm going to go ahead and sample it, and I'm going to pull from this little guy here. Okay, what's interesting is I've never tried these as fries before. They have the texture of potato down. They still have a bit of a rutabaga taste to them. It mellowed out a little bit in the oven. But I definitely can recommend these as French fries. The nice thing about rutabagas and sweet potatoes and parsnips is that, and other root vegetables, unlike the potato, is that the potato, in my opinion nowadays, it's been a while since I've had a regular potato, like more than 5 years, is that you have to actually take the potato and give it flavor with ketchup. All right? You need ketchup to give it some flavor, because what do we all put on our French fries? Ketchup. With these, I could definitely eat these without any type of condiment, without any type of ketchup, other than obviously a little bit of salt and pepper, just for a little bit of flavoring. But these all keep the flavor of the actual root vegetable itself, which is wonderful. It's not overly powerful or anything like that, but it has a nice taste to it. So with that, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, and also share with your friends. And until next time, I'll see ya.